Now, next question is this. Okay, so same from that message. Matthew 25. Look at Matthew 25, verses 28 to 29. Matthew 25. Now, we know the parable. We read about it. Matthew 25. Matthew 25, verses 28 to 29. Now, let's read 28 and 29. I mean, for context, maybe verse 26 onwards. 26 to 29. Now, reading. 25. And I was afraid, and went and hid the talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest, and I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received my own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which had 10 talents. For unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. Verse 30, And cast ye the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So the person asked this. Say, Pastor, when we were learning, he said, I did not understand something. He says, now the talent is taken, right? Talent is referring to this measure of money, all right? It's not the word as we use today, talents, abilities. So it is the sum of money. The sum of money was taken from the unfaithful servant and given to the one with 10 talents, all right? Who multiplied God's sons. So the person asked, why did the one with the 10 talents receive the unfaithful steward's talent instead of the others? What does it mean? So God mentioned there were different servants, right? One of them was the 10, and God says one of them was the 1, and one of them is unfaithful. Why did not God take from this unfaithful servant, take his money and give it to the other instead of this one that had already so many talents, right? So much money. Why? You understand, right? The question, why? Why do you think so? Maybe I ask someone. Vincent, why? He's proven to use what God has given to him for good use. The other as well, he commended him. Well, you had 1 talent and you doubled it. You are good and you are faithful. Why give to the 10? 10 is the one with the most. And he multiplied the most. Okay? So then it would be, what do you think? Maybe Colin, what do you think of what Vincent said?
I think the Lord sees it as a better, shall we say, return on investment.
Okay, all right. Better return on investment. Wow, 10. That's good. 1. Well, you were quite good, but I think the 10 will probably do better than you. All right, so he has proven to be more productive. You got a lot, and you're found faithful. You did not just, multiply 3 and then keep the 7 for yourself. And, you have proven with much, you're very faithful, so I will give it to you. Okay, now that's the common thinking. Maybe I'll ask the last person. Kai, you want to try, Kai? You want to try? Why do you think God gave to the person with the 10 talents instead of the one that has 1 and multiplied to 2? Same reason. Okay. Now what happens if then, let me see. Okay, I'm a pastor, all right? I'm a pastor, so I naturally, being in a full-time, I do a lot more work that is directly linked to the kingdom of God. Not that what you do is not linked to the kingdom of God. So I will end up having more opportunities, being involved more in doing much of the kingdom's work compared to you all. All right? And then you read this, you say, Pastor will get more than me. Will you be quite discouraged? Yong is laughing. Even through the mask, I can tell. All right. Will you be quite discouraged? I'm just a Sunday school teacher, and I teach the little children. Those that are teaching the adults and pastor, they will get more than me. The Lord who He gives ones whom He wants to give. But then the Lord is not very nice to Sunday school teachers compared to those doing big things. Doesn't matter we are in the Lord's presence. Well, that's a good thinking. Now, one thing about studying parables. Remember studying parables? What did we learn when we learned about how to read the Bible? Anyone remember? One of the key point about how should a Christian read the Bible when it comes to parables, when it comes to Psalms, when it comes to Proverbs, when it comes to prophecies, when it comes to narratives, when it comes to epistles. We studied all that because there are certain ways it is written, and through that we know how to interpret correctly. Otherwise we will fall into deception. So when it comes to parables, anyone remember what is the key thing about interpreting parables? Ichung. All right. The answer is at the end of the parable. What else? All right. Now what about the details? Because parables are very interesting to read, right? The whole story, and then this happened, that happened, this happened to that person, the other thing happened to the other person, and so on, right? What is the other thing? Anyone remember? Hopefully, it help you to remember after this. Howard. Howard straight away, no. Now, the other thing to remember is don't read too much into the details. Remember that, all right? Parables are not meant to be studied like epistles. Epistles like we studied this morning. Just one verse, we study every word. We studied the whole phrase together. We studied context, we studied syntax, we studied placement of words, it is God and all that. All right? In epistles, when you read epistles, we are expected to study it in that very literal and full sense, in that sense. That's epistles. But in parables, if you do that, you will go wrong. Because parables, as how it is used even in those days, the emphasis is not the details. They have a main theme that the parable is meant to bring across to you. That's all. That's all. All right? When you try to read all the details, you will have questions like that. And then when you start to read more into it, you probably will go wrong. Now, the things that you all said just now, is it biblical? They are biblical. They are biblical. That God has taught that those that are more trustworthy, they will be given more to do, correct? It is in scriptures, but is it this passage? We also learn that God is... Now, if we want to interpret all the details, then we fall into this problem. It will be discouraging to those who are given little, right? Then people always think that those in the full-time ministry, they will be considered much more faithful, much more good to God than ordinary people like us. They say, that's how it is. That is not, in fact, this parable is meant to achieve the opposite. All right? Not you have more, I'll give you more. It is biblical, there is. But you miss the point of this parable. Now, look at Matthew chapter 25. Now, the whole point of the parable is, for example, found in verse 28, like, take therefore the talent from him and give it unto him which had 10 talents. It is not about how many, compared to more and less. It's simply those who are faithful. God says, I will reward. Because when you look, now please look at verse 23. Now verse 23 is about like verse 22. He that hath received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I've given you 2 other talents. And what is the Lord's answer? Verse 23. The Lord said unto him, well done, good and faithful servant. Well done. And then it says, thou hast been faithful over few things. I will make thee ruler over what? Few things? I will make thee ruler over many things. It's not, well, 2, then over 2. He's 10, then over 10. No, he says you're faithful and ruler of over many things. Right? And look at verse 20. This is about the 5 talents, multiplied it to 10, another 5. He said the same thing. Verse 21. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Any change? Exact same reward, correct? So when you understand that, the point is about, Kelvin, what is the point about? What do you think the point is about? Is it about you are found more faithful, so I give you more? It cannot be. Because it's a little, also a ruler over many, right? So what do you think is the teaching of the parable? Reward. That is all right? Reward. God is gracious. God is kind. Faithfulness is the point. It's not how much. If God so intends that you will just be the person that will sweep the floor after the fellowship, what are you going to do? If you don't understand this passage rightly, you will think, since I'm here, since I'm doing, can I do bigger tasks? Can I be the chairman? And all that, right? God's emphasis is good and faithful. That is the point of this parable, is repeated. Good and faithful is the repeated part. It is not how much is given. That is not the repeated part. That is not the emphasis. All right, so don't start to read into the details about all how many, then why give to the 10, not to the 2, not to the 5? Then you get distracted from the key point, all right? So parables should be read that way, okay? That's why sometimes you read books or you hear messages where someone preach on parables and they go into a lot of details. You begin to get very confused and you get confused and say, but I thought scriptures on other parts say this and say that. You will be in a mess, okay? So the emphasis is simply, God says, I will take, I will give. And the emphasis, faithful. Now, so what is the lesson? So we understand that. What is the point? All right? Now, we must be found trustworthy. Trustworthy. Whatever it is that God has given you in life. As a student, God, I don't have a lot of money. I'm not involved in big committees. God says faithfulness. Faithfulness. In your walk, even as a student, you tithe. Faithfulness. That is all. So how much you do, how much you give. Those who are doing much, don't think that, well, when we get to heaven, we will get more. It's about faithfulness. If you have much and you're not faithful, no use. No use. Okay, so that is the emphasis. Are you trustworthy, my friends? When God comes, God gave you the ability to study. What are you using it for? Don't think I'm a student, not much use. When I come out and work, when I'm somebody, then I live that Christian life. No, faithfulness now. The seniors must not, or the young people must not feel, when I'm older, then I'll be trustworthy with what God gives me. I'll just use it for myself now. No, faithfulness. All right, so I hope that you understand how to interpret parables and what is the emphasis of this one. Okay? The rewards were the same. The same. Ruler of over many. Same statement to both. Now, but it also teaches us this, my friends. Maybe I'll ask you, should Christians live for rewards? Jonathan, wow, rewards. Better be faithful. I want to have rewards. God's emphasis is, I will have reward when I'm faithful. No, All right? Then why does God talk about rewards all the time? You ever wondered that as a Christian? See, God talks about reward. But should Christians serve God and for the purpose of getting rewards? Jonathan say, no, why? All right? Okay, so God has already saved us by grace. That is the greatest gift He can give us already. But God still talks about rewards. Why? Joshua, why? We should work for God's good pleasure. When God rewards His servants, He's glorifying Himself. Okay, to some extent. Yes, that's submittable. Now, God is so good. When we think of God rewarding us, it is not to incentivize us. It's to draw us to His goodness. You just think about this. We learned this morning, it is He that works in you both to will and to do. Why are you willing to serve God? Why are you willing to obey God? Why are you willing to do anything for God? It is from God. Why are you able to do that? It is the energy of God, correct? You do your part, but the energy, the power comes from God. But yet God says, I want to reward you. So He helps you, He enables you to do it, He makes you do it, He enables you to do it, and in the end, yet He says, I will reward you. Now, when you think about that, you think, what kind of God is this to me? How I must love Him. He is so amazing. That's one, to stir us to know, God is so good. I must never distrust Him. Even all this that I owe Him, I can do something for Him, yet He says, I will reward you. How can I ever doubt Him in anything? Number one. Now, number two, we studied that before, right? The second thing is this. Now, rewards. Ruler of many. When we go to heaven, we don't look for rewards. We are not like now, well, maybe there's some part in us, wow, rewards. We are perfect in heaven. We will not think about rewards. In fact, God describes that the elders, they had the crowns, they had the jewels on the crown, they were all casted at Jesus' feet. We don't deserve any of this, even when you reward us and you crown us. They throw it at His feet and say, it is you who gave us all, enable us all. This is all to your glory, right? We will cast it down. But like I taught the other week, now the Christian, when you get to heaven, when you get to be the one that God chooses to be ruler over many, to do much for Him in heaven, there will be a joy unspeakable. It's not the reward. Is the opportunity and privilege in heaven to continue to be used by Him. That is the great joy of knowing that God says, I will make you ruler over many. Right? Not for pride or anything. Okay, so I hope that you remember that. Some lessons, some spiritual lessons. What do we have here? Top 5 reasons why church dropouts. What church dropouts say. Why they stop attending church. Now, please remember 66% of, well, I take the American view, they are the most readily available results. They stop attending church at least a year after turning 18. So from